Welcome back to Montana this morning. Time now is 6:43 and a special good morning to Miles City. Looking at a live shot of the downtown area right now. Just a few people out and about so far. 73 degrees there and in Billings to get you out the door. Let's go ahead and jump into news. We begin with breaking news. One person is dead and another is in the hospital following a fatal crash that forced the closure of a Billings intersection. It happened at 6th Street West and Lewis Avenue around 2:30 this morning. The driver of a minivan was killed when the vehicle collided with a pickup and ended up wrapped around a tree. The pickup driver is in the hospital, but witnesses tell us he was able to stand up and walk. Police say the area will be closed while they investigate, and officers are advising people to use an alternate route. In other news, this is a story that could make the hair on the back of your neck stand up. A mountain lion made its way to a West Billings neighborhood, climbing trees and walking through yards in the Oak Ridge subdivision. The animal was shot and killed by Fish, Wildlife and Parks yesterday afternoon. Officials say they don't try to relocate mountain lions because they often return. A lack of food and water brought on by the hot weather and drought likely drew the big cat to town. And it's safe to say the animal's visit was the talk of the neighborhood.
He came from the back and jumped up in our aspen. We have some tall aspens in the corner. And so he was sitting up there and he looked pretty big. He was panting and he was hot. You could tell he was thirsty, poor thing. And he didn't know what to do. He was scared.
He was sitting up in the tree, scared, like he wanted to leave. He jumped down, which we got scared because we're like, where's this cat gonna go? And then he pops into some bushes and goes around and tries to get as far away as possible.
Wildlife officials say it isn't uncommon for mountain lions to make their way to urban areas this time of year. They recommend keeping pets inside at night, and that's when the cats do the majority of their hunting. A missing endangered person advisory has been issued for a woman last seen in Billings on July 4th. 31-year-old Morgan Russell is white, 5 feet 6 inches tall, and 130 pounds with blue eyes and black hair. She was last seen wearing a black t-shirt with a MCM logo on it. Russell was also carrying a gray and black purse. We're told she has not kept scheduled appointments or contacted family, and there is concern for her well-being. Anyone with information about Russell is asked to call 911. Republican Senator Steve Daines will meet with local officials in Billings today to learn about the city's growing crime problem. The senator was invited by City Administrator Chris Kukulski. He'll have a discussion with the police chief and Yellowstone County Sheriff, as well as the county attorney and area judges. The meeting comes as city leaders are working to drum up support for another public safety levy this fall. Senator Daines has also been busy in Washington. He and fellow Republicans on the Senate Energy Committee are asking the White House to withdraw the nomination of the Montana woman chosen by President Biden to head the U.S. Bureau of Land Management. The committee members say Tracy Stone Manning lied about her involvement in a tree spiking incident in Idaho. They say she was part of a group hammering metal rods into trees as a practice done to discourage logging by risking damage to saws. Stone Manning admits she sent a letter notifying the Forest Service of the crime, but claims she only did so because she feared the people involved would not report themselves. After getting immunity from prosecution, she testified against the tree spikers at a federal trial, and 2 of them were convicted. The White House released a statement standing by Stone Manning's nomination. The unemployment numbers are lower in Montana than most states, but for a long time that didn't exactly mean more people were heading back to work. To change that, the state government is offering $1,200 payments to encourage people back into the labor force. MTN's Jonathan Ambarian tells us if the incentive is working.
The return to work payments were made available to about 22,000 Montanans who were receiving unemployment benefits as of May 4th. If they take a job and continue working there for at least 4 weeks, they'll be eligible for the $1,200 payment. The Montana Department of Labor and Industry released data on the project through last Friday, July 9th. The department has received just over 3,200 applications for return to work payments. 21 applications have been approved and $21,600 have been dispersed. 29 applications have been rejected. DLI says at this time there's no data available on why those applicants didn't qualify. Most of the applications are still being processed. Employers across Montana have reported challenges in finding workers. The bonus program is intended to give people an incentive to re-enter the labor force, in conjunction with the state's decision to end supplementary pandemic-related unemployment benefits. Representative Lou Jones, a Republican from Conrad, says he didn't expect many applications for the bonuses until after those changes to benefits took effect June 27th. He says the state has already seen a notable decrease in claims for unemployment insurance.
Given we're only 2 weeks into the uptake program, it seems to be working. A bunch of Montanans went back to work. 20% of those that went back to work have already applied for the bonus program. The others have another 6 months or so to apply for it.
Representative Kim Abbott, the Democratic House Minority Leader, says she hopes to see the applications for the bonus program processed more quickly. She's also concerned the steps the state has taken don't address all the issues keeping people out of the workforce.
Access to affordable and consistent child care, to a consistent schedule that works for people and their families, and access to affordable housing are 3 major barriers to workforce development and meeting our workforce needs in the state of Montana. Eliminating the enhanced unemployment benefits we thought was a rash decision.
The Department of Labor and Industry says they plan to shift resources around to get return-to-work payments processed faster. They also expect to have updated numbers on the program by the end of this week. In Helena, Jonathan Amberian, MTN News.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. Now we go to western Montana, where law enforcement shot and killed a suspect who murdered a man and then kidnapped a woman. It all started early Thursday morning in Great Falls. Police say the suspect shot and killed a man there, then took a woman hostage. A neighbor witnessed the crime and called 911. The suspect then got in a vehicle and took off with the hostage, leading law enforcement on an hours-long chase, which ended in a standoff on Highway 2 near West Glacier. The Flathead County Sheriff says the man was shot after pointing a gun at officers. The kidnapping victim was not injured and is safe. This morning, we're learning about a terrible case that may have a happy ending. The Gallatin County Sheriff's Office is investigating after he says a dog was dragged down a busy road tied to a car bumper. MTN's Cody Boyer looks into the case.
In the early morning hours of July 7th, Sheriff Dan Springer here at the Gallatin County Sheriff's Office says his department received what he calls a disturbing phone call of possible animal cruelty when a dog appeared to have been dragged more than half a mile behind a car before anyone noticed that it was gone. Now, warning, these pictures you're about to see are highly graphic and considered disturbing, and there's much more to this story.
There was definitely a question of, is this dog going to make it or not?
A call that you'll have to hear from Sheriff Dan Springer to believe.
There was an individual that tied his dog up to a bumper while they were inside and doing their, just getting a get-together. But the vehicle who he tied him up to, he didn't know, that person, she did not know that the dog had been tied to the car.
Dragged more than a half a mile at the end of a rope. Sheriff Springer says deputies searched for the dog named Marley and eventually found a pair of brown eyes peering up from a ditch.
Took quite a bit of work. One of my deputies in particular, she was tenacious about it and was able to locate the dog. It just barely was moving, and so it was not doing very well.
Marley was immediately taken to receive emergency vet care, covered with serious injuries. Springer adds it wasn't until more recently that what really happened became known.
Certainly unintentional. It appears like they did not know that the dog had been tied to the car. Obviously someone did tie the dog there, which is a really bad location to put a dog. So there are charges being investigated. That's kind of down the road. Right now it's about getting the dog fixed up, and dog's doing really well.
And those brown eyes are not without help. In less than one day, the community stepped up, raising more than $15,000 online for Marley's vet care. And although Marley's injuries are horrific, Springer says Marley is expected to make a full recovery.
I knew when this was going to go out that we were going to have a huge response to it, and that's just the expectation I would have from this community, and of course we did. And so yeah, it's awesome.
In Gallatin County, Cody Boyer, MTN News.
And an update: since Cody finished his story, Marley's GoFundMe has raised more than $23 $5,000 of that $20,000 goal. Now in national news, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is expected to be questioned tomorrow in connection with allegations of sexual harassment and misconduct. Cuomo's interview with the New York State Attorney General could mean the investigation is nearing an end. His accusers have already talked to investigators. Cuomo also faces an impeachment inquiry in the state assembly. The governor denies any wrongdoing and intends to run for a fourth term next year. Experts at NASA predict we'll see record flooding in the next decade. Experts released a report that shows high tide flooding could happen more frequently in the 2030s. This type of flooding often happens in coastal communities, but it's expected to worsen due to rising sea levels and the moon. The moon's orbit is expected to wobble, which is typical. It just means the moon's tilt will change slightly, which it always does over its 18-plus-year cycle. But that movement will push high tides higher more often and quicker than anticipated. The State Department is taking steps to combat ransomware attacks. The newly launched Cybersecurity Task Force is made up of several government agencies. It will help small businesses build a digital resistance against attacks and offer big cash rewards for information that leads to the arrest of ransomware hackers. The government has also set up a website, stopransomware.gov, that offers resources to counter cyber attacks. Meanwhile, Los Angeles is putting a mask mandate back in place 1 month since California reopened its economy. This as the contagious Delta variant of COVID-19 is being blamed for rising cases and hospitalizations around the country. CBS's Bradley Blackburn has more.
Los Angeles County is requiring masks to be worn inside businesses once again, beginning this weekend.
Masking indoors must again become a normal practice by all, regardless of vaccination status.
I don't like it. I'm vaccinated. I wish everybody else would get vaccinated, so it's a little frustrating.
LA is reporting more than 1,000 new cases a day.
We expect to keep this order in place until we begin to see improvements in our community transmission of COVID-19.
California's Sacramento and Yolo counties are encouraging everyone to wear a mask to slow the more contagious Delta variant.
The vaccines are great, but they're not perfect. Now, that person is less likely to have severe disease to end up in the hospital, but they could still transmit disease to others.
Daily vaccinations in the U.S. have dropped by more than half over the last month.
They are going to need the full immunity.
This hospital in Arkansas has reinstated its COVID unit as hospitalizations climb, now with more younger and unvaccinated patients.
I do not want a repeat of this last winter, but the way we are headed right now, we will have a repeat.
At the White House, the Surgeon General said social media companies need to do more to stop the spread of COVID misinformation.
Their algorithms tend to give us more of what we click on, pulling us deeper and deeper into a well of misinformation.
Dr. Vivek Murthy declared it an urgent threat to public health, on par with other issues like tobacco use and opioid addiction. Bradley Blackburn, CBS News.
Next week, a CDC advisory panel will meet to discuss if booster shots are needed for high-risk individuals.